Welcome everyone to Beyond the Cinema. We're here trying to talk quiet about a not so quiet movie, A Quiet Place Part 2, except it's not very quiet because it's quite loud.
It's the loud place.
I've been talking to people these past few days because I feel like A Quiet Place Part 2, other than Godzilla vs. Kong, is like probably one of the first like big box office, bring everyone back to the theaters kind of movies. And as I've been talking to people, everyone's been talking this up like it is like so much better than the first one, and it's a immaculate piece of cinema. I think it is probably the best horror movie since 2018, which is when like A Quiet Place and Halloween came out. But I really was not impressed. Oh, it's so weird. See, I was impressed, super impressed, and also super unimpressed by this movie. This movie does an excellent job. It shows how much of a master of directing and editing John Krasinski and like his people are. You do feel like the tensity of it, and like it feels like a really well captured vision. It's like perfection of John Krasinski's vision. The problem with this one, I think, is John Krasinski's vision. This is the first movie that John Krasinski, he just wrote this and completely wrote and directed it himself. And I think it definitely shows a lot of the flaws of a first-time screenwriter's script, in that the movie is lacking a lot of the substance that made the first one so good. It was so quiet that it took little tiny things and made them so scary. And then in this one, it kind of did that thing Jaws versus Jaws 2 did, where now that we've seen the shark, now that we've seen the monsters, I think that they decided that that was going to be, like, we're going to see a lot more of the monsters in this movie. By the end, I was so numb to seeing the monsters and having them be around and everyone running and screaming that I didn't feel any kind of like tensity in the climax like I did in the first one. It just became another monster movie where it was just monsters chasing people rather than what made the first part unique. And then my one nitpicky thing that I like to bring up in every movie, YTF do we end on such a huge cliffhanger in the first movie where like we have that epic moment where they kill the monster and then we see two more running towards the house, and you have that cool moment where Emily Blunt cucks the shotgun.
She cucks it real good.
Cuck.
She cocks the shotgun and you're like, all right, let's go. And then in the next movie, those monsters just poof.
The end. I think, it was an entertaining film. A great add-on to the series, and I think that they've set up something really nice for maybe a final movie in this trilogy. This movie was lacking a little bit in the way of kind of trying to replicate and do what they did before in the first film, because it just didn't come off the same way. They were trying to go for the same quiet aesthetic. We joked at the beginning of this thing that it was more of a loud place, and it absolutely was, because everybody was just running around bang 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 the entire movie, The factor of being quiet was just, it became obsolete in this movie. It was no longer a thing. Why? Like, I understand it's cool to like have the concept of the feral people who are just like, we're gonna do stuff to you, we're gonna stab, and you're gonna make some noise, and all this stuff. If everyone in the world is like these feral people, then why were they able to go to this island and everyone's like hunky-dory happy neighborhood?
Well, I think those people were there the whole apocalypse. Like, they got out early.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, maybe
Sorry
I'll have to cut that out of that. It's whatever.
No, you're good.
It's fine.
Honestly, I kind of want to go back to the first one to commend him on something. I always talk about this in movies that I can appreciate it, but the creature design and movement and choreography for the creatures is really something unique that I really like and appreciate. I feel like A Quiet Place did not succeed because of its monsters. It succeeded because of its execution and its story and its grounded like grittiness and reality and all that. Having these really unique, cool-looking monsters that are scary and creepy, and they have a very cool subset of sounds and movements. And I feel like I would have enjoyed A Quiet Place Part 2 less if it weren't for the presence of those monsters, although I do think that they kind of showed the shark a little bit too much. As far as story goes, I agree with everything Spencer and Tyler have said, and I think some of the dialogue is just rough. Like, Reagan is one of my favorite parts of these movies, as an actual deaf actress, Millicent Simmons, but there's one line where, spoilers, after, she catches up with an old family friend, he's telling him, he's literally just like, oh, your dad wouldn't have been able to hear that song on the radio. And she's like, you're nothing like him. And it's like, oh, okay.
Oh, jeez. All right.
Just stuff like that. I feel like it was just choppy and sort of forced conflict.
Can we talk about how boneheaded and incredibly stupid their children are? Just like the last movie, the driving plot point, like, these movies would not happen if the Abbott's children, if John Krasinski and Emily Blunt's children had more than 3 brain cells inside their head. Because, be smart and like sit and stay quiet because my foot hurts really bad because I stepped on a bear trap. But no, I'm just gonna go climb and look through this ratty, rusty old warehouse. So then it could just be like, oh, and then the monsters come. Oh no!
Not to mention his Super Saiyan squeal that like
Oh my gosh.
resembles that of a hog going, just like going crazy. What's this kid's name? Marcus. Listen, Marcus.
Never scream in a movie again.
You've got a bad screen. You're too prepubescent. You need to get on that, please, before you scream again. Thanks.
A random thought. I watched this with a friend who's a big football player, and he said that he's like, if I live, like, he leaned over to me like in the early minutes of the movie. He's like, if I was living in this quiet place world, I'd always have a football mouth guard in my mouth. So then he's like, if you get hurt, you can just bite down on that thing. And I was like, I looked at him because I had already seen the movie at this point, and I was like, yeah, that would be a good idea. Literally like 3 seconds after, I was like, yeah, that would be a good idea. So that was kind of my random thought. It's just that the movie, if they didn't, if John Krasinski and Emily Blunt were lucky like Cillian Murphy and their kids died the first day, they would have lived for so long.
They'd be just fine.
Also, Cillian Murphy's really good in this. Just had to say that. He needs to be more things. But I'm going to wrap this up with, I guess, my thoughts in rating. A Quiet Place Part 2 gives us just enough compelling new ideas and new concepts to make the sequel interesting. But I think it kind of lacks what made A Quiet Place groundbreaking. So I'm definitely going to say that it is significantly better than Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Yeah, I'm also gonna have to say that this movie was hands down better than Ant-Man and a Wasp.
I'm gonna give this a better than Ant and Wasp.
Alrighty, everybody, that was A Quiet Place Part 2. Thank you very much for joining us. Be sure to like and subscribe and notify that little bell thingy in the corner.
Notify the bell.
Notify the bell so it can notify you. Thank you all so much for listening, and please comment and let us know if there's anything else you'd like us to review in the near future.
Thanks for going with us to a loud place and beyond the cinema.
Yeah, beyond the cinema. Woo! Loud place.
I love when we start like that.